Hi, everybody. We'll give
Hello
people
there.
a second to get all registered into our webinar tonight.
It's a pleasure to be
Having a
here.
nice evening. People are joining us now. I can feel it.
Yes.
Good evening and welcome everyone to the Immigrant Experience panel. We have quite a treat for you tonight. My name is Robin Luther, and I'm a member of the Planning Committee for the Tosa All-City Read, an initiative of the Wauwatosa Neighborhood Association Council. Before we begin the evening, I am very excited to thank our masterpiece sponsor, Beth Jaworski. She's been a longtime sponsor of this program, of Shore West Realtors, and another longtime sponsor, our bestseller sponsor, North Shore Bank. They make this event possible. So when you see them, say hi and thank you. I'd also like to tell you a little bit about our format. This is a Zoom webinar, which is different than a Zoom meeting that you might have joined the other night. You can see and hear us, but unfortunately we cannot see and hear you. So we're missing you, but we'd still like you to have your comments and questions collected tonight. So if you have questions during the presentation, click the Q&A button that you see at the bottom of your screen and type in your question. After we go through a few questions with our panel, we'll grab some of those questions as time permits at the end of the presentation. If you have any technical difficulties at any point during the presentation, our best advice is to leave the presentation and close Zoom and then reopen this webinar with the same login that you received by email or Facebook. And finally, this presentation is being recorded, so you can rewatch it if you miss anything or if you want to share it with others. Excuse me. A link to the recording will be available on the Tosa All-City Read Facebook page, as well as information about our other events coming up. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce our really terrific panel tonight. We have three people who have so generously agreed to come and join us and tell us their stories. I'd like to introduce Lalitha Murali.
Hello.
Lalitha. And Catherine Reby.
Hello.
And this is Jorge, and I'm going to have Jorge tell us his whole last name because I'm going to butcher it.
My name is Jorge Antonio Montiel Aguilar.
See, now you understand why I did that. Oh. Well, we're going to start our panel by having everybody share a little bit about their story. This will take a little while, but I think it'll be really nice to get an overview of each person's story before we start into smaller questions and into our audience questions. So I'd like to give each of our panelists an opportunity to share a bit of their story, how they first came to the United States. Lalitha came when she was well into her adulthood. Catherine arrived in the United States in her young adulthood, and Jorge arrived in the United States at age 11. So Lalitha, why don't we start with you?
Awesome. To be exact, so we arrived in Helena, Montana on January 28, 2001. So I came with my two daughters, so who were 1.5 and 3.5 years old. Because my husband was working for an Indian company, and that Indian company got a contract for the State Department of Montana, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. So first he came here in 2000, September, and then when they decided that this is a long-term project, they said, now you are eligible to bring your family here. So that's why he came back, and then he applied for a visa for us, and then we were able to join him. So that is how we came. So both my girls started their preschool in the western part of America.
Can you tell us a little bit more of when you arrived, how you, was your journey here a safe one? And was there cost to that decision, or what kind of documentation you had to have to come into the country?
As you can see, so both my sisters were already here in America. One was in Chicago, one was in Detroit. And then whenever they come home, I got married and I was settled in India itself, so we all go home to our, parents' house with our children. And then whenever my sisters come from America, they get a royal treatment because they come by airplane, so I go by train or bus, so then, it is the way, so if people know that you are coming from America, so you get that, so a royal treatment. So we always watch this documentary and see America is a dreamland, so everyone wants to come to America for a better life. And then I came to America with lots of, I was so excited when my husband said, we are going to America, and with a lot of ideas. And, I was thinking that, oh, God finally answered my thing. I'm going to my dreamland, America. And it is not the same. I landed in Helena, Montana airport, which was kind of a 4-bedroom house. So I said, is this America? No, this is not the America I saw in TV. And then I come out. So I have until hip the snow, because I came in winter. I did not like the America at all. I told my husband, I don't want America. I want to go back. Because as you can see, I am from southern part of India, Tamil Nadu, Chennai, where it is 100%, summer, and we wear only half sleeves. We don't even wear full sleeves. Here I am in the, so total opposite weather. I don't know anyone. We didn't know how to drive car, so it was a night and day difference for us. So the journey was not a problem. So of course it is 32 hours, airplane ride, and we were excited to come to America. So that didn't bother us at all. But the weather, so since we didn't know anyone, so those are all the things really made us feel like, it took a long time for us to settle into America. So we didn't have a visa problem or anything, because we came through proper channel, so the company sponsored and we had our tickets and visas.
So when you came here, Lalitha, you came to be with your husband while he was working on this project, but obviously you are still here. How many years later?
20 years.
Right. So when you first came here, were you intending to stay in the United States, or did you plan on going back?
We were planning on going back. So they did tell us that it's only a 3-year project. So after 3 years, we have to go back. So we came with just 2 suitcases, so then we came here, and then we thought we are going to go back, so, we need to go back. We will be going back in 2 years, and I have to see Niagara Falls, and I have to see this, we planned and we saw everything, so because my sisters were here, I was able to go and see, and that's it. And then what happened was my older daughter started kindergarten in the Helena public school. She was the only brown skinned child in the entire school district. So she had a hard time fitting in. So the kindergarten teacher called me sometime, after 4 or 5 months, and he said, I feel sad to watch your daughter in class. She's perfectly fine, but she's not mingling with other children. She's not playing with them in the playground. She's sitting all by herself. And I was surprised. And then that day I picked up my daughter and I asked her that, how come you're not playing with anyone? And she said, everyone is asking me, how come my skin is brown and my gums are brown? Can you take me to Walmart to get a cream so that I will also become white like my friends? So I never expected this answer from a 5-year-old. So the next day I just went to the kindergarten, classroom, and I shared that with the teacher. And I said, this is why my daughter is not playing, because I think everybody is looking at her like an alien. And is there a way I could come to the classroom to volunteer? Because I feel like it is important for children to see people also exist with the different skin colors, because this is western part of Montana where you do not have any other culture. We did have during that time 20 years ago some Native American people, but they were all going to reservation schools, so they did not come to the proper public school. And so otherwise it was 100% white. There were no African Americans, Asians, or so we had only one Jade Garden, a Chinese restaurant a little far away. And it's such a small town, so the population is like Shorewood, 20,000. So the capital of Montana. So it's a small city. And then that is how I started. Today, I am a proud public school teacher, and I work as a gifted and talented teacher for the Glendale River Hill School District. But that is how our journey started. Then when I went to the school and I made lesson plans and I taught kids that, why your skin is brown, when I explained those things, and how my daughter is so special who came from other part of the world. Overnight, she became the celebrity. Everybody wanted to be her friends. And the principal said, we want to hire you as a teacher because the kids respond to you well. And is there a way? Then I transferred all my credits because I already had my bachelor's and master's from India. I transferred, I went to a local college, Carroll College in Helena, Montana. And within 1.5 years, I received my bachelor's in education. And I am going to finish up. I have still 6 more months. They said, my husband's project is done. We have to go back. So I said, I cannot go back. You know, I have worked so hard. I really want to work in America for at least 1 year as a teacher. So I don't want to, skip my education and go back. And then I, requested my husband to look for jobs, and he applied and he got a job in Milwaukee. So he got a job with AT&T in Milwaukee, and that is how we ended up coming here. Mm-hmm. And so they were able to sponsor for our, so the visa and everything. So that's another story. I can come back later. Yeah. And at least, so we decided to stay, and I got a job, so, but initially our plan was to go back after 3 years. Everything changed because of my daughter's experience.
So that set you on the path to being here, and your daughters are in college now.
Correct.
Wonderful, wonderful. Do you have your citizenship? Did you apply?
Yeah, after 15 years. So we finally received our citizenship. Even today, somebody was asking that how long it took. And I said, there is no time limit. You don't even know. Some people get after 15 years, some people get after 10 years, some people never get the citizenship papers. Wonderful. So that is how the system is. No one knows what's happening. So 2010, I remember 2010, June, my husband's company, again, they said that every month we were living paycheck by paycheck. They said, I don't know whether I'll have job next month. We may have to go back to India. We may have to go back to India. We never bought any furniture. We never bought anything. We didn't even have a car, when we were living in Montana, the Shorewood for first 2 years, because we were always expecting that anytime we may have to go back because we didn't have the green card. But we had the work permit that we were renewing every year. Finally, the company said, okay, end of June, you have to leave. That's it. We cannot sponsor anymore, and we will inform the government that you don't have a job with us. And we sold everything. We were ready to go back June 10th, 2010. Through mail, regular postal mail, we received our green card. So we thought, okay, maybe God wants us to stay here in America. But until that time, we did not know that we are going to get our green card and stay here.
Wonderful. That's a great overview of your story. Thank you so much. Catherine, can you give us a little glimpse into your experiences?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So my name is Catherine Reeby, and I was actually born here in the United States. My parents are from Nigeria, so I am Nigerian American. My father came to the US to go to school, to University of Nebraska, go Cornhuskers. And my mom joined him, and they got married, and they had my older sister, and then they had me. So I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska. My parents moved to Wichita, Kansas when I was still little, and we lived there for a while, and then they decided to go back to Nigeria. So I went to Nigeria when I was almost 7 years old. And I lived in Nigeria without coming back to the States for 15 years. So I did I had completed first grade here in the States. So I started second grade in Nigeria, though at an American school. And then I went to what we call secondary school, which would be starting from grade 7. I went to secondary school, to a Nigerian secondary school, and I went to a Nigerian university for my first degree. And then I worked for 2 years. And then I came back to the United States as a young adult. And I came to Milwaukee because my uncle was here. And I worked at Boston store. That was my first job here in the States, was at Boston store downtown, Grand Avenue Mall. And then I went back to school the following year. So that's my journey of coming to the States. I mean, sorry, leaving the States and coming back to
And coming back. So when we were talking earlier, you almost had two immigrant experiences. I mean, going back to Nigeria, you were an American kid here for 7 years. What was it like returning to your country? And then when you came back to the United States, did you have your citizenship, and do you have dual citizenship?
Okay, so when we moved to Nigeria, so I went to Nigeria for the first time a month before my 7th birthday, and I went on a Nigerian passport. And that was difficult because Nigeria and America are very different. I wasn't used to the heat. So opposite of Lalitha, it was very hot and there were mosquitoes and there was pepper in the food. And I didn't like some of the food. I didn't like most of the food. I wanted hamburgers and French fries. I wasn't used to all the people, and I wasn't used to being laughed at because of my accent. So there were many things that were very different and very strange for me. So I went back on my Nigerian passport, and I'm not sure when it expired. It expired at some point. And when I decided to come back, at that time, I already had applied for an American passport, and I came to the States. So I never renewed my Nigerian passport. I only have an American passport at this time. And therefore, I am not considered a Nigerian citizen. At one time, Nigeria did not allow dual citizenship. So I had just the American passport. Nigeria does allow dual citizenship at this time, but I have not gotten a Nigerian passport. So legally or technically, I am considered just an American. But if I were to go to Nigeria, I need I need to get a visa, a Nigerian visa. But after I leave the airport, nobody would question if I am a Nigerian or not. So I could, and in Nigeria, we don't use the Social Security number as much there. So you can basically function in almost any, I could basically function in almost any sphere, even though I don't have a Nigerian passport.
And your parents were born and raised in Nigeria, were in the United States for a little while and still live in Nigeria.
Yes, so my parents were born and raised in Nigeria. I used to tell people that if you cut me, I'm 100% Nigerian, that the blood would be 100% Nigerian. So yes, my parents are 100% Nigerian, and by blood, I am 100% Nigerian. So I am an American because I was born here. Mm-hmm. My parents lived here for a while, and back then in the 60s and 70s, people didn't go back and forth like they do now. So my mom had been here in the States for 9 years with very limited contact with her family back home. So she was homesick. Now you just jump on a plane, take a 2-week visit and go back, but that wasn't the case then. So she was homesick, and so she packed us up and went back.
When you came to the United States to go to school and you lived with your uncle as your chaperone, did you intend to live in the United States for the rest of your life, or did you intend to come here for school?
I hadn't really thought it through. I was, in my early 20s. You know what they say, the brain isn't fully formed until you're like 25. So my brain wasn't fully formed. So I knew I wanted to go to school, and I also wanted to there was this group called Youth with a Mission. I wanted to do a 2-year stint with them, traveling and overseas and whatnot. And I don't know that I had thought of my life past those 2 years. So I came, and as Robin said, for Nigerian girls or young ladies at that time, it was customary that you stayed with your parents until you got married, or you could, if you lived in a different city, you would typically stay with a relative. So since I was coming back to the States, I couldn't just come. I had to go to a relative. And that's how I ended up in Milwaukee. I came and lived with my uncle who lived in Milwaukee at that time.
And then things happened that you stayed.
Yes. And actually, after I came, my other siblings started to come. So the first four of us were all born in the States, and within the next 5 years or so, the other three had all come. So by that time, when half your family's here and you've gone to school, you've made friends, it quickly became apparent that I wasn't going back to Nigeria.
Thank you, Catherine.
Sure.
Jorge, we're moving to you, and you have a very different experience.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and share that?
Well, yeah. For those of you who are just logging in, my name is Jorge Antonio Montiel Aguilar. I like to say that. Yeah, definitely. My journey to the United States started when I was about 11 years of age. My dad actually had been here in the United States for about 3 years already. And the only reason why we wanted to come to the United States was the first reason was to actually get with him. I mean, me and my dad were pretty much this duo, like we were like so close like this, and being away from him was very, very difficult. And I know that my dad had actually talked to my mom about it, like, you know what, you should just come to the United States and then we'll go back for the kids. We'll send for the kids. Now, my dad came here illegally. He crossed the desert first time. Then he had to go back to Mexico because his dad passed away. So he had to pretty much go bury his dad. He came back, and 3 years later, he was like, you know what, you guys should come with us. And like I said, my mom was like, if I'm going to the United States, I'm taking my kids with me. And the reason why we actually started the journey was because somebody from the town where we used to live was about to come to the United States, and they knew that my dad was here, and they say, you should go with us. So it was something that was in the making. It was getting planned, but then those people that were actually on their way here kind of made it like a faster process. So then next thing you know, I was like, we were in an airplane to Tijuana. Right now in Tijuana, we stayed at a hotel, and then it was going to be my mom, myself, my brother, my sister. I had a cousin and a nephew. All of us were family. My sister and my nephew crossed pretty much the next day. My brother and myself were taken to this home with completely stranger people that we didn't know. It was part of, like, they're called coyotes, basically people that cross, their job is to cross people from Mexico to the United States. So we were taken there. I was 11 years of age. My brother was 9 years of age. And they're telling us, go with these people that you've never met in your life. And just to kind of give you guys an idea, I had never been away from my mom for a day. We were always together, in the town. And for me, it was hard. I mean, being away from her. I remember that the next day when they took us to this house, the next day, I told my brother we were at this house that they were gonna pick us up and take us to, California. I remember telling my brother, look, that hotel over there in the center, probably that's where mom is. We should go over there. And thank God that he didn't listen and we didn't do that, because imagine we would have been lost in Tijuana, right? So then my brother got picked up like 2 days later. He was dropped to California. Then I got picked up like 5 days later. So I was by myself in that house. About 4 or 5 days later, I was taken to a spot Somebody else picked me up. This lady drove me to Tijuana. The line, I think it's between Tijuana and this one part of California. I cannot really remember, but she crossed me basically through the border, right? After that, I was taken to this one house. I spent about 2 hours there. I was taken to like this parking lot. Somebody else picked me there. I was taken to a different house. Then they took me to this different spot. Somebody else picked me there. They took me to their house. And the very next day, they took me to my aunt's house. She was the one that actually was telling my mom she was going to help her, support her in her journey, right? Now, when I was getting picked up, they told me that my mom and everybody was already in California, that I was the only one that was missing. So I was really excited to get to see my mom again. Well, when I got to my auntie's house, my mom wasn't there, and I asked her, well, where are they at? They were like, well, they're still in Tijuana. It took my mom and my cousin 30 days to actually go from Tijuana to California, because we didn't have papers at that time, right? So it was a very hard decision, because we were gonna cross the desert, but at the end, last minute, they say, you know what, you guys are not gonna do it. My uncles from Mexico, they talked to my dad. They were like, we're gonna help you as much as we can, but we're not gonna let you cross. We're not gonna let Teresa, that's the name of my mom, and Jorge cross the desert, right? So basically, that's pretty much a little bit of my story when it comes from going to Mexico to here.
I have two questions for you. The first,
Yes.
I'd love for you to describe to people when you were in the car with this woman who took you across the border.
Okay.
Can you tell people what she asked you to do and how that actually went when you crossed the border? You're in the car with her and another child, I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, what she did was she when we were at the line, basically we call it the line between Tijuana and California. She bought me like a little bit of ice cream, lemon or lime ice cream. I remember that. And she was like, eat it. And I was eating it. And she was like, we're about to get there. She was like, when you're there, all I want you to do is look the other way and kind of bang your head against the chair of the car. Not hard. I don't want you to hurt yourself, but just like kind of like close your eyes and bang your head. And I was like, okay, no questions asked. And then we got there, and I remember hearing voices. I was just focused on doing my thing. I was just like hitting like this. So then she said thank you. She started driving. She was like, you can look now. And I was like, oh, okay. She was like, you can start eating your ice cream again. So I started eating my ice cream. And funny thing, I was like, so at what time are you going to we're gonna get to the line, the border? She was like, oh, you just crossed the border right now, 5 minutes ago. And to me, it was exciting, and it was relieved that I'm already on this side.
Right. And she had you just look like somebody that people would be like, I'm not going to ask what's going on with this little boy in the back.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
it.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that, I mean, some people they do this for a living, right. And she obviously she didn't want to get caught, and it's easy to cross little kids, and they won't ask kids questions if they look like they're a little bit like like they made me
Unable
seem
to
like I was a
answer.
little
Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So then after, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, you had a group of people who were helping you get across the border. If you had tried to get into the United States with paperwork, what would that process of why did your parents choose to come across the border without paperwork as opposed to going through channels that would give them paperwork to let them cross legally into the United States? What would that process have been like had you chosen that?
Okay, well, that's a great question. And really, to become a U.S. citizen is not as simple as applying for a job. The surest way to becoming a U.S. citizen is to be born here in the United States. Then there's different things that you can do. So, for example, if you get married to like a U.S. citizen, there's a process, right? And not even then, there's chances that even if you get married to a person that is born here, it's like a citizen, the chances you have a big chance of becoming a U.S. citizen, through application and everything, but it's not guaranteed. there's multiple ways for a person to become a U.S. citizen, but it's not guaranteed. Now, the reason why is that number one is really, it takes a very long time. Two is not guaranteed. And three is very, very expensive. My parents, thank God after a few years already, like, I mean, I got here when I was 11, 2004. I'm about to be 28 in like 7 days. On Tuesday, I turned 28 years of age, basically 17 years in the United States, right? So thank God they applied. My parents have a work permit and everything, like a visa already. But I talked to my mom yesterday, and I was like, Mom, how much was for my dad, my mom, my brother, and my sister? I was like, how much was it? She's like, well, we spent about $12,000. And they had to wait 5 years. Now, they had to wait 5 years not to get a yes answer, but just to get a maybe.
Mhm.
Now, thank God they got a yes answer, right? But now they have to stay with a visa for 4 years before they can apply for a residency. Then they have to, wait a couple more years and apply for citizenship. But throughout that process, they have to be good citizens of this country. Otherwise, if they do something crazy and commit a felony, their papers are gone. So it's a very, I'm okay for that. I believe that somebody who is who commits a crime or is a felon or like that, like if they're bad people, I'm like, well, no, you're not gonna get papers. But some people, like myself, I think I'm a decent human being, decent person. Like I'm like, I just want a shot. I don't want anything for free. I just want a shot. We got to California. I thought that we were gonna stay there. I was excited because I'm like, we were looking for a better opportunity. That's the only reason my dad came to the United States, for a better opportunity. I'm not gonna say that we were really poor in Mexico, but there was lacking of a lot of stuff, And my dad used to live in California, and when he went back to Mexico, the second time that he came, also through the desert, he came with some people, and he was like, you know what? They had family here in Milwaukee, so that's how he ended up going. He ended up from being in California to coming here in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. I'm glad we spent some time on hearing everybody's experience. We have a bunch of questions that we were thinking about asking. I'm going to skip ahead to the question about being able to find the family, work, or schooling opportunities that you envisioned. If you could each just share briefly something that you envisioned for yourself as far as working or schooling, and if that's working out, or if you're facing some barriers. Catherine, would you like to start?
Sure. So when I first came, I was thinking of doing a 1-year certificate in Bible. I wanted to get a certificate in Bible from Moody, which is in Chicago. And my parents were like, well, if you're going back to school, why don't you get a master's? So I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I didn't really want to, but they're my parents. So okay, I'll get a master's. So at that time, I didn't like any of the masters at Moody. So I started, looking around the country for something. And I ended up in Columbia, South Carolina for a master's. So in that way, I wasn't thinking, when I first came, I wasn't thinking really of going for a master's, but because of that situation, I never did go with that group, Youth with a Mission. So I got a master's in teaching English as a second language, and came back to Milwaukee. I started teaching for a bit, and then I left and I went to Kuwait. So I had been in America for about 3 years, going on 3.5 at that time. And I was lonely. I was not used to American friendships. In Nigeria, I had a lot of good friends. We palled around. We were constantly together, and I was just lonely. I wanted to leave. I didn't want to be in America. So when I started looking for a job, I was looking for a job in a different country. So I ended up with 2 interviews, very interesting. One was in Bahrain and one was in Kuwait. So I ended up in Kuwait. So I went to teach English at Kuwait University in Kuwait, where I was for almost 2.5 years. And obviously I never thought about going to the Middle East. I never thought about living there for a while, but that's what happened. And then, I came back to the States after that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa, how about
We-
you?
We actually, in our Indian culture, we believe in horoscopes, so when I was longing to come to America, so I did show my horoscope to one of the astrologers. I said, is there a way I could go to America? He said, yes, you have a chance of going to America through your husband. And also, you have a chance of studying further. I said, no way. I already have my bachelor's and master's. I am no way going to school again. I'm married. I have 2 children. I don't want to go to school. Who would go to school? That's the mentality I had, so I thought maybe, it's a fluke. I came to America, but I'm not going to go to school. But guess what? The horoscope is kind of, that's why we believe, and it worked. And I had to go to school to get my bachelor's in education so that I can work as a teacher. Then I got a job, so as soon as I finished, we got our work permit. And then I was able to work as a teacher in the district. So my first job was in Shorewood as a, study hall teacher. And then that is how I started. And then I wanted to study further. And then I did my master's in bioethics and also started my PhD. And recently I wanted to be in administration. So I just started at Concordia, my master's in educational administration. So I never ever thought that I'm going to continue. And even my cousin makes fun of me. He said, people study when they are in 20s, not when they are in 50s. And I said, I don't know, so all these opportunities come and now I'm studying more and more. So, which I never thought that I'm going to do.
Right. And Jorge, I know your experience is very different coming here without papers and as a child. Tell us about what your aspirations were and are, and what barriers you face in achieving those.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned to you guys, I came here when I was 11, and it was a little bit different for me because I remember one of my cousins, he had a brother here in the United States, and we kind of mentioned that we were going to come to the United States, and he told me this, well, good luck over there. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, people over there in the United States work 364 days out of the 365 days out of the year. And I got scared because I don't know nothing, And I was like, but I'm a kid. And he was like, it don't matter. And I was like, oh, okay. So then literally when I got here, I told my auntie, I was like, so when can I start working? That was my thing, And we had another auntie that had like, they work, landscaping. So I went work like 2 days with them, but then they were like, no, you don't have to do this. And I was like, okay. And for me, it was a little bit more difficult because I had no English is my second language, as you guys can see. And I had no English, not like I didn't know nothing about English, zero English. And I didn't think it was that necessary until we were traveling from California to Chicago to the train station, because I traveled from California to Chicago on the train station. And I remember we were crossing, for through this one state that it was just really hot, really, really, really hot. And I was thirsty. So I went downstairs. There was like a little place where you could get like water and ice. And I went to like the guy who was serving that. And I was like, can I have a cup of ice or water, but in Spanish? And he looked at me like, what? He's like, yeah, ice, yellow, He's like, I don't know what you're saying. And it got me scared because it was my first experience, like a real experience with like language being the barrier. And I was like, oh my God, I mean, like, hopefully life is not this hard. And it made me from that point on, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do whatever it takes from me to never be able to feel that way again, you know. So when I got we went to school here in the United States, you know, obviously, and they put me in a bilingual class. I was taking ESL classes so that I would get to learn English, and throughout my middle school, that's what I did, right? And I wanted to go to college. I wanted to, you know, be this mechanical engineer. The problem with not having a social in this country is that the opportunities that you have are very less. You know, you have very, you know, my grades were really good, but I wasn't able to apply back in the days to get a lot of scholarships, right? Even though I was in a what we could say a good school, that some of my mentors from middle school helped me get into, I wasn't able to get like advantage of all the scholarships because I didn't have a social, and I didn't know nothing about the social. How did I find out about it? Was because we faced a little bit of financial struggles, and I told my mom, "Well, my grades are good. I can work in the afternoon," you know. And I remember going to McDonald's with my cousin or a friend of mine that I call him cousin, and he applied there. He's like, "You should apply," and I was like, "Okay." So I got an application and I filled it out. And they were like, "Well, we need your social." I was like, "No problem. I'll go home and ask my mom for it." So this is where things started getting a little bit harder because I was like, "Mom, I need my social." It's like, "What?" Like, "Yeah, I need my social because I want to work." She's like, "Well, you don't have a social." And she started explaining to me like, "Well, people who are born here get a social. Some other people get different socials, but you don't have a social." And I was like, "Well, how am I going to work? How am I going to apply for this? How am I going to apply for that?" And those were the challenges that I started facing as a younger person, and I felt that it was going to be hard. And believe it or not, it was very hard. I
Mhm.
mean, most people that are here, they want to have a social to work legally here, but also because to have a license, you know, having a license would take the weight off so many people because they can drive freely. We know how to drive, we just don't have a license, you know. And I had happened to, you know, be one of those guys that got pulled over multiple times for not having a license, not because I was doing anything wrong, not because I was speeding or doing this or doing that. It's just simple. Sometimes cops will stay behind me and they run my place. They're like, "Oh, no license." They go pull over, you know. And it was very, very difficult at that time because, you know, not having the ability to get a driver's license, not having the ability to work properly in the United States, it was challenging for me. But me and my dad, we made it work. Me and my mom, you know, everybody who doesn't have papers, we always make it work. One way or another, we make it work.
Tell people what high school you went to in the area.
Yeah. So I went to Riverside University High School. When I was in middle school, they offered me to go to Subdivision High School, Pulaski. I received letters, and I told my counselors in middle school. There were some people that were really good with me in CLC, Community Learning Center, after school. And I told them, "Man, you know, they want me to go to Subdivision," and they were like, "No, that, you know, South Division had a really bad reputation back in the days. So like you have the opportunity to go to a better school, Riverside. It's like we can get you there." So they literally helped me. They got me the application. I submitted the application, and some people used to take tests to get into Riverside, but because I mean, English was still low for me. You know, I was taking ESL class and everything, but when it came to math and other subjects, I was really, really proficient. And that's how I was able to get into Riverside. You know, I was hoping to go to Madison School, you know, university. We went to for a tour and everything, but not having a social kind of put me in a spot because I was almost getting like the opportunity to get a scholarship over there, but me that I didn't have a social kind of that opportunity just kind of flew away, you know. But I said, "You know what? Well, nothing I can do about it. Let me work the next opportunity. Let me find, you know, something else, you know."
Right, right. So you weren't able to go to college, but you had almost a free ride to Madison,
Pretty much, yeah.
but you
But
couldn't access it. Um, Tell everybody what you're doing now professionally, what you work and where you work now.
yeah. So right now I have what we call DACA, deferred action. President Obama signed a few years ago, and I was able to, I qualified for that. I took advantage of that, was able to get my driver's license, and it felt really good getting pulled over with the driver's license now. I was super excited, because I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't scared that I was going to get pulled over and probably go taken to jail, because one time they did put me in handcuffs, not because I did something bad, just because they pulled me over without a license, and now, thank God, I'm working currently at Snap-on Tools right here in Milwaukee, like 10 minutes away from here. But I am also have a life insurance license, and within the next week or two, hopefully, I'll have an investment license, through Primerica Financial Services. That's a company, that's a career that I wanna pursue, financial services, to bring education to the community.
Excellent. Thank you, all of you, for those questions. I think we have time. There's a question in here about that somebody has asked from the audience about discrimination. And so I think I'll move to the question that we had thought about talking about is, have you experienced any prejudice against you? And has it been something that's been, an occasional thing, or something that you frequently experience? And do you think that is coming from the fact that you are not originally from the United States? Or do you think it's a broader issue than that? And can you give an example and give us an idea of your feelings on that? Lalisa, would you like to talk to that?
Yeah, I can definitely go. So, as mentioned before, we were living in Montana, and I did not know how to drive. So I had to fly down to Chicago to get my driver's license, and then go back, buy an old Oldsmobile car. Then my husband learned how to drive. So that's how we started. One day I took my van to for oil change, and there was some minor repairs to the shop. It was, kind of a Honda Center or something, I don't know, Oldsmobile. So the sales guy came in and he said, "I hate you guys. You just come in from your country and you take away all our jobs, So I never, faced that kind of, so direct, I hate you, so that kind of thing. I just stayed for a second, and then I said, "Okay, do you have 5 minutes? Can I talk to you?" He said, "Of course." And then we were sitting in the lounge, and I said, "I have my bachelor's and master's from India. I am not eligible to work in this country. I'm still in H4 dependent visa. Only my husband has the work permit. He's in H1, and he's working for the state of Montana. And we are not here to take your job. Even for my husband to come to this country legally to work, he has to go through a lot of paperwork. And for example, if there is a job opportunity in America, they cannot give it to a person in a different country just like that. Say they have to advertise for that position at least in 6 different places, a newspaper and TV and a lot of, and they have to prove that there is no other American qualified for that job. Then they can give that opportunity to a person abroad. And then through that company, they have to sponsor for passport, visa, so it took almost 1.5 years for my husband to get the process done, and he came back, and then we came. Even then, we are not eligible to work. We are planning to go back to our country, so after this project. And then he apologized. He said, "I'm so sorry. I did not know about this. I thought you guys can just fly into America and take away all our jobs." So as Jorge mentioned, everywhere they will ask for Social Security. They will ask for all the paperwork. Nobody will get a job just like that. So everywhere, discrimination happens. I thought by moving to a place in, like Milwaukee, yes, the life is much better when compared to Montana, because we have Indian temple, we have all our Indian people, I could see them, we have Indian restaurants, we have Indian grocery. Otherwise in Montana, I used to order my Indian groceries, curry powder and everything through online, so they were shipping from Chicago. So I do have all of those things. Do I face discrimination even now? Definitely. but not in a direct way, but like microaggression. So even, for example, if in the school districts, so right now people are talking about, oh, we need to introduce multicultural, so we need to provide equity, and so all of those things, the trainings are happening. I remember one day one of the educators told me that, oh, you don't need to worry about losing your job because you are a colored person. So I said, why are you telling me that I'm a colored person? I don't need to worry. And I have my qualification, so I have my degree. I am an educated person. I do a good job. Why would I lose my job? So people still feel that, okay, so she has the advantage because she is a colored person, so we still face that kind of discrimination. But it is not as bad as, places like Montana.
Catherine, do you want to speak to that?
Yes. Yes, I face discrimination. Most Black people, I would imagine, face discrimination. Maybe if you're leaving your home, perhaps pretty regularly. I don't know if I could say on a daily basis. Some examples are going to a store and having people look at you funny or follow you around, going to a store to return something, and even though you have a receipt, being treated as almost as if you stole it. Going to a store and being at the self-checkout and having an employee of the store stand, like they're arranging something just so that they can stand next to you and watch you scan your items. Also at schools, almost every school I've been to, when my children first start, when I go to the office or when I speak to the principal, I'm not treated in a friendly manner. It's after they get to know you. After they get to know me, unfortunately, after they get to know that I have a degree, well, I have more than one, but I have some qualifications, then their attitude warms up. It's going somewhere, and especially if there are not many people, if I'm the only person that's not white, the awkward silence and people deciding if they want to talk to me or not, or include me or not. And unfortunately, this is my everyday experience. So there are things that I don't even notice anymore because I'm so used to them and I've conditioned myself to something. So often I will ask my husband is white. Often I ask him to return anything I have to return, even if I have a receipt. And it's not, I can stand there and I can, demand to speak to the manager, but I just don't want to put myself through that. So I just say, often I'll just say, can you return this? Sometimes you just keep overlooking so that you don't explode.
There was another question. I just want to, before you finish your answer, there was a question about the current climate in America and as a land of, a welcoming land of opportunity. They were asking if you'd ever want to go back to your original country, and in your original country, you would not experience that same prejudice.
Yes.
American citizen coming to live in Nigeria again now.
Yeah, yes. It's an interesting question. If the question was asked to me specifically or to all three of us, because, okay, yeah, so, because I did have I think a lot of references to, well, maybe I shouldn't say a lot, but just some references to marrying a white person. And, sometimes I would have to tell people, no, I am an American citizen. I'm just an American citizen as you are. If someone is born here in the States and is an American citizen, there is no difference in what rights they have, what they can do, whether your parents have been here for 4 generations. And, you know, it's a fact that most of the people that are behaving in this way, they are not Native Americans. And at one point, their parents or their grandparents or great-great-grandparents immigrated to this country. So going back to Nigeria, actually, I have lived in America more than 3 times, I think, or 2 times as long as I've lived in Nigeria. So I consider myself bicultural. Technically, the term is a third culture kid. And so the country of my forefathers is Nigeria, but I am American and I am Nigerian. Going back to Nigeria is hard at this time because things are very chaotic there. And also my children, this is the only home they've known. They do have aspects of Nigerian culture, but all their schooling has been here. They've been to Nigeria just once. So going back to Nigeria is not an easy thing to say. I know how I feel sometimes, like when I first came and most of my family was back there, it was like almost like it wasn't worth it. Like, do you want to live your life forever separated from those you love the most? So would I go to Nigeria and my kids would be here and they would get married and have kids and I would live in Nigeria because I'm more comfortable there? No, my children are the 2 people I love the most in this world. So I will not do that.
Thank you. Jorge, do you have an experience of prejudice that you'd like to share or a feeling about that?
Well, I was kind of jogging my memory back, and personally, I think it's just being like the looks, you know. Sometimes I'm always trying to be nice to people, you know. Let's say if I'm in front of them and we're gonna, you know, let's say we're going to the mall, I'll open the door, and there's a lot of people that are like, thank you, you know, they say thank you to you. They, you know, I don't expect anything. I do it because that's pretty much how I was raised. But there's been sometimes that people just look at me, and even though they don't say it, the look in their face is just like, what are you doing here, pretty much, you know. And I remember back in the days we used to march to the Capitol right here, you know, Madison, and there were people, you know, saying, you know, go back to where you came from, you know, saying all these like racist things. But personally, myself, I have not experienced something like that, like directly. I've seen it happening. I mean, I've been told that, but like in a group of people.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I just let it slide because it's not worth. I mean, some people are saying that because they're racist. Some people are saying that because they are uneducated. You know, I mean, they say go back to where you came from. I would if I could. You know, I mean, if I go right now to Mexico, I mean, I've been here for 17 years, almost 17 years already. I was brought here when I was 11. The Mexico that I left is not the same Mexico that I would go back to. You know, I'm pretty much Mexican born, American raised.
Mhm.
I feel, I mean, Mexican, I'm Mexican 100%, but I wanted to serve this country. I mentioned to you the first time that we talked that I wanted to join the Marines. That was one thing. My dream was legit joining the Marines, right? And there was a person who actually went over there and tried to, like a recruiter, and he was like, yeah, you know, you should join the Marines. They have this, they have that. He started talking to me about everything, and I was like, you know what, I'll do it. So when he came to filling out the paperwork, you know, they asked the same thing. They asked me for my social, and I was like, I don't have it. I don't have it. He's like, I'll talk to my supervisor, see what we can do. And when I called him again, he was like, well, the Marines right now it's at full capacity, and we cannot accept your application right now. And I was like, well, okay. So I still wanted to serve the country. So crazy enough, I submitted an application to the U.S. Army. And within minutes, they called me and we started talking to that. They were like, you want to join the U.S. Army? I was like, well, I wasn't going to tell them that I wanted to join the Marines, right? So I was like, yeah, I wanted to join the U.S. Army and everything. And so they started going through my application and he was like, oh, it seems like right here you forgot to put in your social. And I was like, well, that's the thing. I don't have a social. And the guy told me this. He was like, young man, he was like, I don't think you should be filling out like government paperwork if you don't have this, the social. I didn't know. I was like, well, everything I was trying to do was just try to serve this country, you
Right.
know, just as a thank you. Because, I mean, my dad back in Mexico was a police officer, you know, so for some reason, I just wanted to serve this country. It was going to, for me, it would feel like an honor to serve the country, you know. And he told me that, and it kind of hurt. I'm like, well, I'm not trying to do anything bad. I'm just trying to serve, give this country a little bit of what it has given me, an opportunity. And I asked him, why wouldn't they let me serve if I want to? And he told me this, and I still remember to this day. He was like, well, the people above do not believe that somebody who broke the law to get to this country would be fitted to protect the same law that he or she broke. And that was the last time that I tried to join the military, because I was like, well, probably next time they'll catch me and then they'll send me back to Mexico. You know?
Yes, yes. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to go, since we're a little past 8 o'clock, we've got about 15 minutes left. I have a question from somebody. It's kind of an ally question, and I think people are hearing you loud and clearly. And this is a person who is wondering how they can help you as an immigrant. What can they do as a white person who is a citizen here and has not immigrated to this country but was born here? Although Catherine, I know that you were as well. What can they do to be an ally to you? How can they show their support of your journey? What would you say to people who are like, how can I help you? How can I help you make this easier? Your immigrant experience is easier, or for somebody else that they meet who is a new immigrant to our country.
Okay. So I think that the best help that they can do is get informed, because when people understand the journey and they get informed, it'll open their eyes to see that coming to the United States for my dad was not a I want to do it, but more of a I have to do it. I mean, for the people listening, can you imagine this? Leaving your spouse, your kids, family, friends, everything that you owe, to go on a journey and not knowing whether you're going to make it or not, because the journey, it's a for example, for me, that I came here, you know, all my family came here legally. The journey was hard. I mean, my mom yesterday was tearing up when she was telling me that, you know, the hardest thing that I did was watching complete strangers take you and your brother away from me, and trusting that they were good people. You know, what you guys can do to help out is, you know, educate kids, your kids, that when people are here and they're from a different country, most of them, they would give anything to be able to go back and at least visit their family. It's truly what I truly believe, that coming to this country illegally, it's a sacrifice. Because, I mean, just going based out of what my dad had to go through, imagine he got lost in the desert for a few days. You know, when he got to California, you know, he used to work in the crops over there in California, you know, picking up, you know, fruit, vegetables, and all of that. And after all that, he faced more challenges than us. You know, they used to work weeks for free too. You know, and a lot of people are like, how are they going to work for free? Well, the people that would, you know, own the plantations and everything, they would literally call immigration on Friday so that they wouldn't get, you know, they wouldn't pay the people that worked. Some people got caught, they were sent back. Some people, were able to get away. So just by educating, and I mean, I'm open to talking to people more in details about my experience, and be more, how do I say, be more involved in this immigration. The process of becoming a citizen is not an easy process. It's a very hard and difficult process, right? And I want people to understand that it's a slow process. It's a very expensive process, and there's no guarantees.
Right. Thank
know?
you. Lolita, same kind of question for you. Can you talk about microaggressions? Do you have a sense of when people are very accepting of you and when they're not? I mean, you can detect microaggressions out in the world. How have people been allies to you? And just when you're out in your regular life, how do you feel the people that are accepting you are different from that?
Yeah, as Jorge said, so even though we are Americans now, so I'm an American for the last 4 or 5 years, so we have the U.S. passport now, but we still are, so I am still 100% Indian, so I value my Indian culture, so I raise my children also, so even though they follow the Indian culture, they are 100% American, so they are Americans, but still lot of Indian children, so they tell me that, since I'm in education field, they tell me that, in school, when they take the traditional Indian food, other kids are making fun of them. Oh, the food smells bad, and then, so as you can see, so in our culture, so this is the wedding chain, so we are a little bit different, so we don't wear a ring, we have the chain, and we have to wear this, the bindi, but I cannot go to school wearing a bindi, so even in airplane, so if I fly somewhere, so I have to wear a jeans and a t-shirt and no bindi, I should just go like that, then I will not be scrutinized. But if I go in Indian dress, immediately they will take me out, they will, do all sorts of, checking for me. So that is there everywhere, so our children, so when we want to raise our children in the Indian culture way, because we are, Indians, and we value our Indian culture, and our kids are being made fun of, so when they eat Indian food, when they talk, and when they bring their grandparents from India, so when they go to school, and, so I'm not saying everybody, but one way the allies, so the white people can help us is education, as Jorge said, so we need to teach our children that America is a melting pot, so we have people from all over the world. Everyone is coming here for better prospects, better lives, and then appreciating them, appreciating their culture, telling them, please take your children to different restaurants, Indian restaurant, Mexican restaurant, Chinese restaurant, let them experience the flavor and the food of every culture. Then they won't, so make fun of people for their accent, make fun of people. Even when I first started my job, so I still have, even though I've been living here for more than 20 years, I still have Indian accent, so people, when I first came to Montana, people asked, how come you speak English? I said, of course, we were ruled by British. Even my great grandpa can speak English, but we speak with Indian accent. So in my school, so one time I remember a 5th grade student laughed. I said, why are you laughing? Oh, you talk funny. And I said, that's because I'm from India, I can speak 5 different languages. Because India has 28 states. Each state has its own language, culture, music, dance, everything. So if we are living in a neighborhood where I have a person from, so I'm from Milwaukee, a person from Minnesota, Chicago as my neighbors, and when I'm communicating with them, I pick up some words from them so I can fluently talk to other people. So we were ruled by British. Everyone can speak English. Our national language is Hindi. I am from Tamil Nadu state, so my native language is Tamil. So automatically I speak 3 languages because of my neighbors, and in school we are taught different language. So easily we can speak 5 different languages. So of course we will have accent. I cannot speak like American, and then when people understand education, so as Jorge said, they treat us differently, as Catherine said, so when we go sometimes, people, they don't need to verbally tell us. By their looks, we feel kind of, oh, we are not welcome here, that kind of is there still. So I think the only way to solve those microaggressions and all those things is through education. We have to teach our children different cultures, multicultural way, and education is the only key, I think, to solve all these issues.
Mhm. Catherine, do you want to speak on the idea of allyship and
Sure.
there? Yeah.
I'll focus on people here in Wauwatosa and people listening, how to be allies to, well, there are two ways to look at it: allies to immigrants or allies to Black people, because I'm Black. One of the things is that trying to envision yourself in that person's shoes, or, in a different country, and how you would feel. And in that case, I think that one must resolve to speak up when you see things that are not right. Often we are in situations and where we may not be treated right, and there will be people, not white people, who do not necessarily agree, but will not speak up. So if more people spoke up when they see injustices occurring, I think they would occur less frequently. We all have people in our circles who think differently than we do, and who might be racist, or who might be subconsciously, might subconsciously feel they're superior to others. And even though it's uncomfortable, we need to call them out. You can call your mother out, you can call your brother out, you can call your best friend out. We need to confront things like this when we see them, and also to advocate for those who have a different experience than you. For example, through these past many months of the Black Lives Matter and protests and things like that, for many people, it does not touch you because you are not Black and your child is not Black. But if you can imagine how you would feel if you were in that situation, and you would want other people to stand up because it is wrong, then think about that and stand up. You can write letters. You don't have to be out on the streets. There are many ways that one can advocate for change. There are many ways that one can make a statement that something is wrong and should not continue.
Thank you. Our time has gone so quickly. I appreciate the few questions from the audience that we were able to fit in, and I appreciate all of your wonderful comments. We have a few minutes left, and I think it's okay to go a little bit over. I'd love you each to have a chance to just give us a final thoughts, anything that you'd like to share about your experience, something that you'd like people to take away from your experience, or just something that is important to you that you'd like to share. Lalitha, why don't you start?
To piggyback on what Catherine said, 2 years ago, I had to go to a teachers conference in, the Wisconsin Dells, for a annual conference. And I don't drive highways, since I came in my 30s to America, and I learned driving. So I am still scared of driving highways. I do not drive highways. I always ask people to, I always carpool with people because it's still, I'm scared to drive. So I was asking around other educators that, hey, I need a ride. So is anyone from Milwaukee going? So I had an African-American teacher who's doctor, she has her PhD, and she said, Lalita, I live very close to your house. I would be happy to come and pick you up, and then, so we can carpool together. We are coming from the conference, and then in the Madison area. So she there was a police cop, on the other side. And she said, guess what? The police is going to stop us right now. I said, no, why are you saying that? Why would he stop you? He said, no, he just saw me and I know he's going to stop me. Immediately, within a minute, our car was stopped. And I cannot believe that, since I don't drive in highways, I never experienced that. And then the police, after 5-10 minutes of wait, and he came, he said, where is your license? She had everything, all the papers and everything. She's an educator. She's a doctor, PhD. So he took all the paper, and then again, he did not come for 10-15 minutes. And then finally he came back. He said, so I was just noticing that your license plate is going to expire. And she said, yeah, it doesn't expire until end of this month, so I still have it, so when it expires, I'll put it back. So she had even that paper, that sticker. And then for no reason, we were stopped and we were in a highway, so for half an hour. And she said, how can I explain this to my teenage boy, Lalita? So nobody understands what we go through. So if it is my 17, 18-year-old boy, so if he is being stopped for no reason, when he has all the paperwork and he gets angry. So I am a middle-aged woman, so I understand, okay, they are doing their duty, calm down. So I'm able to, but my teenage son cannot, so then he says, why are you stopping me? Once he starts asking questions, immediately he is in trouble, so when Catherine was mentioning, that is true. That is happening for real, unless you are, in our shoes, we will not, it is very hard to understand, so people think that, oh, I was never stopped. And that's because of the skin color, it is still there. And so we really love this opportunity. We thank you, the Tosa All City Read, to give us all this opportunity to share our experiences. And we are really hoping that so our next generation will not feel all of these microaggressions and stuff, because we need to be, as Catherine said, if you see someone is being not treated properly, so we all have to stand up, so then people understand that, this is the right way to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jorge, what closing thoughts would you like to leave our viewers with?
Yeah, so going back on what Catherine said, I think what I would want for people to take and understand from this is that, I mean, it is already hard for somebody, for example, like me and like all of us that come from different country, to come and adjust to this country. Things are very different, and what I would want people to take out of this is that I want for people to try to understand something. America is the best, in my opinion. The United States of America is the best country in the world. We wouldn't come here, my people from Mexico, Central America, and other places, that most of them come here illegally, we wouldn't risk our lives if we didn't believe that this was a promised land, right? And I think that the best thing that people can do is like like Lolita was saying, just educate themselves. And I want for people to just have an open mind. If they want to know something, they can talk to to people. We're always open to questions, like that. And I had a now that Lolita mentioned something about the cop pulling them over. I had a similar experience where, I mean, I didn't have my license that one time that I got pulled over. I worked third shift. I was very exhausted. I went home and I got pulled over. The cop made me roll down my window, took my keys because I didn't have a license. I did have insurance on the car, but I had parked. When he pulled me over, I had parked in a spot where I was able to park. He made me roll down the window, and it was during a winter where it was really, really cold. He took my car out, he made me get out of the car, took my car, and made me walk. And he just left, took my car, the tow truck took my car. They didn't give me a chance to call nobody and everything, and made me walk. He just left me. And what I want people to understand is that being an immigrant is not easy. we're treated differently, sometimes by our own people. Latinos sometimes are the ones that treat us worse than people who are actually born here. Latinos who get their papers, sometimes they treat other people worse. And what I can, if there's anything that I want you guys to take from me is this: if you were born here, you're lucky because you don't have to go through that. But to be able to inform yourself, all you have to do is just, get more involved in your school, in your job, or with panels like this, because America, what makes America a great country is diversity of all different cultures. And you should be able to teach your kids and your younger generations and all these people that there's different people in this world, but the best are here. And you shouldn't judge somebody based on their looks. You should only, you should try to learn about their cultures, learn about them so you can be friends with them. Most people that are here, they want to be accepted too, you know. And like I said, any questions, just I'm open for that, to talk to you guys.
Wonderful.
And thank you for this.
Oh,
Really.
thank you. Thank you. Catherine, why don't you take us home? Give us your last thoughts that you'd like to share.
So thank you, Robin, Maureen, the whole All City Read Committee and the sponsors. It's nice to meet Jorge and Lalita. I've not met them before, and to be on this forum. Thank you to all the viewers who I can't see for the questions. So like Lalita and Jorge have said, it's being an immigrant can be enriching if we accept it. So I want to remind most people whose families have been here for 3, 4, 5, 6 generations that your families were once immigrants. And how would you have felt if your great grandmother was treated in such a way just because she had a German accent, or her name was, I don't know, Johnson, or, or she, ate lutefisk or whatever it's called. So because you've been here longer than other people doesn't mean that you should treat the newcomers poorly, because at one time your people were newcomers as well. I know it is possible to live in harmony. There is something within many of us that wants the best for ourselves and not for other people. And really, we must fight against it. You must guard against it, because once we start treating other people as less than, in the end, it's going to boomerang and destroy our society. It's going to destroy us. So embrace things you don't understand. Seek to have friends that don't look like you, that speak different languages, that eat different things. Man, I'd love to eat some of Lolita's cooking or Jorge's mom's cooking, be interesting to learn about where they're from, and the saris and the things in Tijuana that Jorge, we can become so much better when we can embrace our differences and accept each other as fellow human beings. And this is what I would challenge us all with, all of us, including myself who is talking, because we all have our prejudices, we all have stereotypes of people, but we must fight against that and remember that every human being has worth. Nobody is more important than the other person, whether they have a degree or not, whether they have black skin, well, there's no really black, but really dark brown skin or light brown skin or pale skin, whether they're tall or short, whether they can walk or not, those that are differently abled. there are so many things that we allow to divide us instead of, you know, seeing past those differences and embracing them. So I hope, I pray that Wauwatosa will become a more welcoming society. I pray that we will embrace those that are different from us and not make them feel ashamed or less than because they don't look like us, they don't talk like us, they eat different food. That we can have a society where, you know, everyone can feel that if they drive their car, they're not going to be pulled over, where I do not have to worry about my son at 11 p.m. because he's not home yet. And I don't know what the cops will do when they see him driving alone in his car. That is something that no mother should have to go through. And I hope that those of you who have never gone through that can understand and see when we are talking what we have gone through and decide to advocate and to be allies with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
You guys have been absolutely wonderful. I can hear the cheers of the people that we can't see. What a unique opportunity to have the three of you here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. This is our Immigrant Panel Experience event for the Tosa All-City Read. There's many more events coming up. You can check the website under events and sign up for things and go to book discussions and all kinds of nifty things. Another big thank you to our masterpiece sponsor, Beth Jaworski of Shore West Realtors, and our bestseller sponsor, North Shore Bank. They make these things possible, and it's a wonderful, wonderful gift that they give us all. Thank you so much, Jorge. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Lolita. You are swell, and good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.